A Doctor of the Wind. Hello, dear friends of the story of me and you. In a world rushing forward, some stories quietly linger behind, carried on the wind, whispered in the silence between mountains. Today, we invite you to journey with us to the wild, windswept steppes of Mongolia, where one woman lives, not just to heal, but to hold on to something sacred, a way of life nearly forgotten. In the remote Zavkhan province of western Mongolia, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the sky feels closer than the ground, lives Oji, a 35-year-old doctor, born of the steppe and for the steppe. Her face carries the wind's memory, strong, weather-worn, yet soft when she smiles. Oji is not just a healer, she is a daughter of nomads, a keeper of a vanishing heritage. Every day she rides across the desert on a rumbling motorcycle, navigating invisible paths no map could ever draw. With her husband Magna and their 2 daughters joining during school breaks, her life is a dance between duty and longing, between the quiet ache of separation and the urgency of compassion. I know every stone of the steppe, she says softly, her eyes scanning the endless golden plains. Even in the dark, I never get lost. This land is in my bones. For the nomadic families scattered across this vast wilderness, sometimes more than 30 kilometers apart, Oji is more than a doctor. She is the thread connecting them, the comfort in the storm, the one who always shows up, no matter the weather. In winter, when snow swallows the earth and silence becomes heavy, Oji drives through storms that would make others turn back. Her hands may tremble from the cold, but her spirit never does. There's a kind of love that doesn't need words, and that's what Oji gives. The kind of love that shows up, rain or shine, blizzard or drought. Though she was born here, Oji once dreamed of being a teacher. That changed the day her grandmother suffered a heart attack. She still remembers the helplessness in her parents' eyes, the absence of nearby help, and she made a vow. She would return, not just to visit, but to serve. Her daughters now study far from home, in cities where books replace landscapes and walls replace horizons. Oji sees them only in summer. That sacrifice is heavy, and yet she carries it with quiet grace. I miss them every day, she admits, tears barely held back. But I'm needed here. I chose this. Oji's story begins where most would end, in isolation, hardship, and sacrifice. But for her, it is exactly there, in the silence of the desert, in the heartbeat of a sick child, in the smile of an elder relieved from pain, that true purpose is found. Next, we'll ride with Oji as she visits her patients, facing both the physical distances of the steppe and the emotional distances between tradition and change. Dust rises behind Oji's motorcycle as it glides across the steppe, wind in her hair, silence all around. The nearest hospital is hundreds of kilometers away. But her patients cannot wait that long. Each morning, with a worn leather bag of supplies strapped to her back, Oji begins her rounds. She knows where every family lives, not from GPS or maps, but from memory, from heart. Her engine hums like a prayer, pushing through wind, through time. She arrives at a distant yurt just as an old woman steps outside, clutching her chest. Her breath is shallow, her face pale. Oji doesn't panic. She kneels, checks her pulse, gently places a stethoscope on her patient's chest. "It's okay," she whispers. "I'm here now." There is no waiting room, no sterile white hallways, only the sound of goats bleating nearby, the soft flicker of a fire inside, and the deep trust between a healer and her people. Underscore, 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 a clinic without walls. What Oji carries with her is not just medicine. It's comfort, presence, stability, in a place where the weather can change in an instant and help might otherwise never come. Since 2012, mobile clinics have become a lifeline in this region. Oji is part of a network of 165 doctors and over 1,000 health workers serving a population spread across deserts, lakes, and mountains. But despite these numbers, much of the burden still falls on her. She treats cuts from animal horns, broken ribs from horseback falls, high fevers from flu outbreaks. Sometimes she delivers babies. Sometimes she pulls teeth. Every case matters. But more than medicine, what she brings is reassurance. And that, out here, is priceless. "My hands are my tools," she once said, "but my eyes, that's where I see their pain first." Dialogues. That's day 1. Afternoon. A father hands her his 3-year-old daughter with a burn scar across her chest. "She never cries," he says, his voice cracking. "But after the accident, she hasn't been the same. Oji kneels beside the child, her touch gentle, her words a balm. Scars don't make us less perfect, she says softly. They tell our story. And we will heal her, together. Moments like these linger in her soul long after she's left. These aren't just patients. These are her people. Cousins, neighbors, childhood friends. Bridges between past and future. As she rides to the next ger, Oji watches a flock of birds fly overhead, migrating like her people always have. But more and more, the steppe feels emptier. Fewer smoke trails on the horizon, fewer children's voices. Many nomads have moved to cities, trading the open sky for brick walls and polluted air. They leave behind their herds, their stories, their elders. Some do it for school, some for jobs. Others simply cannot endure another Zood, those brutal winters that take livestock by the thousands. When a child coughs, I see more than illness. Oji reflects. I see a culture at risk. If they leave, who will remember how to live with the land? And yet, amidst all that change, there is resilience. In the dust on her boots, in the rhythm of her engine, in the quiet way she listens, Oji reminds her people that they are not forgotten. Next, we follow her back to the heart of her roots, home, where the challenges of raising a family collide with the cost of her calling. The next chapter explores the delicate balance between motherhood and mission, and the loneliness that even heroes carry. Between motherhood and mission. The steppe is vast, but the silence inside Oji's heart feels even larger when her daughters leave for school. Each year, as summer ends and her two young girls return to the city for school, the yurt feels emptier. Their laughter, once echoing against the wind, fades. Her arms, once full of bedtime hugs and braided hair, return to bandages and vials. By day, Oji heals others. By night, she folds the girls' clothes, keeps their drawings near her pillow, and whispers stories into the darkness. As if they could still hear her. I only get to see them for 15 days in summer, and 15 in winter, she confides. The rest of the year, I'm alone on the steppe. Completely alone. Motherhood at a distance. In Ulaanbaatar, the capital, her daughters study inside gray walls, breathe smoky air, and sleep under electric lights. In their notebooks, they learn math and science. But Oji fears what they don't learn, the rhythm of the land, the wisdom of her ancestors, the quiet strength it takes to survive out here. She wants them to succeed, to be educated, independent, safe, but she also wants them to remember what it means to live freely, with the wind in their hair and the soil beneath their feet. I wish there were schools that taught both science and survival, she murmurs, eyes fixed on the mountains. We're not just losing people to the city, we're losing memory, tradition, soul. The cost of a calling, Oji, didn't choose between family and service lightly, but she took an oath to help the sick, to stay when others leave, to ride into the storm when someone needs her. She often wonders, what kind of mother is she, spending months away from her daughters? But every time she saves a child from fever, every time she comforts a grieving widow, she's reminded her love is not absent, it's just dispersed, woven into every act of care. A glimpse of her inner world. At night, Oji sits by the stove, boiling water for tea. She writes letters she never sends, draws tiny hearts on scraps of paper, and hums lullabies from memory. The stars blink above her like distant answers she'll never fully grasp. They say love means being there, she whispers, but sometimes it also means being far, so others don't have to be. The edge of survival. The first snow arrives silently, dusting the desert in white. It is beautiful, but no one here smiles when it comes. For the nomads of Mongolia, winter is not a season. It is a test, a reckoning, a gauntlet of survival. And when it arrives early or fierce, it carries a name whispered with fear, Zood. A Zood is when the land stops feeding us. Oji explains, her voice low, no grass, no warmth. And soon, no life. The battle against the cold. Oji doesn't sleep much in winter. Emergencies multiply, coughing children, frostbitten fingers, old men who collapse in the snow trying to find firewood. She wraps her body in thick wool, layers upon layers, but her eyes remain sharp. Every crackling radio call, every knock at the door, she answers. No ambulance can reach these frozen plains, but she can. When others wait for spring, she charges into the storm, her motorcycle slicing through wind like a blade through fog. In these moments, Oji becomes more than a doctor. She is a warrior, a guardian of life on the edge of death. When the animals begin to die, The cattle, goats, and sheep, lifelines of the nomad way, begin to fall. Their food is buried under ice. Their bodies are too weak to withstand the chill. When animals die, families lose more than income. They lose identity. They lose their rhythm. Some never recover. We can survive the cold, one herder tells Oji, but not the silence of an empty pen. That silence grows louder each year. The invisible enemy, climate change. Winters have changed. When Oji was young, there were 4 seasons. Now there are 2. A longer, hotter summer, and a winter that kills faster. The rivers run lower. The grass grows thinner. Water, once taken for granted, has become precious. Water is our gold, Oji says, and it's slipping through our fingers. Nuak la veng kua chung toe, Ogi noi. Vano dang tuot koi tai chung toi. Global warming isn't a theory here. It's a daily reality, and the nomads, who depend on nature more than anyone, suffer first and hardest. The unspoken exodus, every zood pushes more families toward the cities. Some sell their livestock, others simply bury them and leave. Ogi watches this migration not with anger, but with sorrow. Each departure is a goodbye to tradition, a goodbye to freedom, a goodbye to the heartbeat of the steppe. If we lose the animals, she says quietly, we lose the nomads. And if we lose the nomads, we lose ourselves. The roots of strength. In the vast openness of the steppe, where the wind knows every name and every yurt glows like a quiet heartbeat in the dark, Oji finds her strength not just in duty, but in lineage. She comes from the Muzun tribe, a family of proud nomads. Her blood carries the memory of generations who moved with the seasons, lived by the land, and healed with their hands. Her parents, wisdom and wrinkles. Oji's parents live a few days' ride from her current station, in a secluded camp nestled between windswept hills. When she visits them, it feels like going back in time. Her mother's hands are thick from milking goats and kneading dough. Her father still wakes before dawn, eyes scanning the sky, reading clouds like scripture. They say little. But in their silence is a strength that shaped Oji from the start. We were proud when she chose medicine, her father says quietly. But even prouder that she chose to stay. In their eyes, Oji is not just a doctor. She is a continuation of something ancient. A living answer to the question, will we survive? Ceremony of the haircut. Oji arrives just in time for her niece's 3rd birthday, a sacred milestone marked by the traditional haircutting ceremony. It is a rite of passage that symbolizes growth, protection, and a new beginning. As the child sits calmly, surrounded by laughter and prayer, each snip of hair is a whisper from the past. You belong. You are loved. You are one of us. Oji holds the child close after the final lock falls, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. This is why I stay, she thinks, so that this won't become just a memory, but a future. A culture worth fighting for. In every loaf of handmade bread, in every herd counted at sunrise, in every story told beside the fire, Oji sees a sacredness the outside world often overlooks. It's not just about saving lives, it's about saving meaning. A way of life where time is marked not by hours, but by migration. Where wealth is measured not in money, but in livestock, honor, and heritage. I want my daughters to know this strength, Oji whispers to herself one evening, not just in stories, but in their bones. A vanishing line. Oji watches the road from her yurt, long after her daughters have disappeared from view. Their school lies 5 hours away. Their future, even farther. She waves until the dust settles. Then turns back to the fire, her face half lit, half in the present, half remembering. The children who don't return, more and more, the children of the steppe go to school in the city, and never come back. They adapt to another world. Paved streets, neon lights, convenience. They grow used to supermarkets instead of milking goats, clocks instead of seasons. And slowly, the rope that ties them to the land begins to fray. Until one day, it breaks. Quietly. Permanently. We used to have 10 yurts here, an elder tells Oji. Now, only 2. Our grandchildren don't even know how to saddle a horse anymore. It's not just people who vanish. It's knowledge, identity, language. The rhythm of a life once passed from hand to hand now slips through fingers like wind through grass, the false promise of the city. The city promises education, jobs, a better life. But the reality is often harsh. Thousands end up in Gur districts, urban slums without heating, plumbing, or hope. There, the steppe is only a memory. The air is thick with coal smoke. And the quiet dignity of nomad life is replaced by noise, stress, and scarcity. They move for their children, Oji says, but end up losing everything else. Some try to return, but by then, their herds are gone. Their skills, forgotten, and the steppe no longer recognizes them. A culture in freefall. Since the 1990s, over 600,000 herders have left the steppe, and the number grows each year. What used to be the majority is now a minority, aging, burdened, and often alone. Oji sees the trend, feels the ache of it in every hollow yurt, every silent fire ring. And still, she stays. But is staying enough? Oji knows that presence alone cannot save a way of life. It must be passed on, actively, intentionally, repeatedly. Tradition doesn't survive by accident, she reflects. It survives by love, by choice, by teaching. Trien thong, kong ton tai, no ngao, nien, ko tram gam. No ton tai no ten yu, no luachon, va no viek dailai. She begins to gather children each summer, telling them stories, letting them milk the goats, teaching them to make bread with their own hands, reintroducing them to a rhythm older than school bells. Even if they forget later, at least they will have remembered once, holding the line. The wind cuts sharper in late winter, not just through wool and skin, but through faith. In her small yurt, Oji wraps her coat tighter and lights the fire again. Outside, the snow piles up against the felt walls. Inside, the silence presses on her chest, heavier than the cold. She hasn't seen another soul in days. Her husband is away, gathering supplies. Her daughters are in school, and most of the neighbors have moved. There are moments, fleeting but real, when she wonders, am I the only one left? The last light. There's a kind of strength that no one applauds, the strength to stay, to wait, to listen for a knock that may never come. Oji keeps the yurt warm anyway. She checks the medicine kit every morning. She sharpens her tools. She boils clean water, not because someone is coming, but because someone might. Even if one person needs me, she says, I'll be here. It's not just medicine she offers. It's presence. In a world that moves fast, Oji's stillness becomes its own kind of resistance. Burden and blessing. Sometimes the responsibility crushes her. To be the doctor, the teacher, the bridge, the memory keeper. The last ember in a culture slowly turning to ash. But then, a knock on the yurt door. A child with a fever. A mother with a burn. A grandfather too weak to sit up. She doesn't hesitate. She kneels. She heals. She whispers gentle things like prayers, and the strength returns, not just to the patient, but to herself. I took an oath, she repeats, sometimes aloud. And I'll honor it, even alone. The line between loss and legacy. What Oji holds now is fragile, like fire in the wind. But even a small flame can light a great distance. She knows she cannot stop all who leave. But she can stand here, firm, visible, a living memory that says, we were here, we mattered, we remain. And maybe one day, one child, now grown and far, will remember her and return, even if just for a season, even if just to say, I see you, I remember. The legacy we leave. The snow begins to melt, tiny streams trickle down the rocky soil, a promise of spring, a promise of return. Another harsh winter has passed. Oji is still here, so is her yurt, so is the sound of goats in the distance, and the wind whispering the same old stories across the land. Oji does not own land. She doesn't have a big house or a title, but what she has given, quietly, fiercely, without asking for praise, is immeasurable. One day, she says, they might not remember my name, but maybe they'll remember the feeling, that someone stayed, that someone cared. We don't always choose the legacy. Sometimes it chooses us. Oji never set out to be a hero. She just said yes to a path no one else dared walk. She said yes to staying, to believing, to beginning again, every day. Her story teaches us this. Legacy isn't about greatness. It's about goodness that endures, about doing the small things with great heart, over and over, until they ripple beyond us. A fire we carry forward. One day, Oji will grow old. Her daughters will have children of their own. The yurt may be passed to another set of hands. But the fire she kept burning, the fire of compassion, courage, and culture, that fire will not go out. Because someone will remember. Someone will return. Someone will stay. To live, simply, is not to live small. To stay behind is not to fall behind. Sometimes the strongest revolution is to remember thank you for walking this journey with us. This was the story of me and you, a tribute to those who stay, to those who heal, and to those whose quiet strength holds the world together.